Imagine, a typical quiet neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
back in 1981.
Yeah.
Kids are outside playing, neighbors are chatting,
Right.
that sense of community where doors are often left unlocked.
Yeah.
That was Pocatello, Idaho, where
Right.
the Smith family lived.
Mm-hmm.
But that sense of security was shattered one Sunday evening when 14-year-old Linda Smith vanished from her home,
Wow.
leaving behind a 9-year-old brother who witnessed the terrifying abduction
Oh my gosh.
and a community grappling with a mystery that remains unsolved to this day.
It's a case that has haunted this Idaho community for decades.
Right.
And today we're going to take you deep into the heart of it.
Okay.
We've got an episode of a true crime podcast dedicated to Linda's case.
Great.
And we're going to break down the timeline, the evidence,
Okay.
and the lingering questions that continue to baffle investigators and torment Linda's family.
It's a story that reminds us that even in the most seemingly peaceful places, darkness can lurk. And sometimes the people we trust the most can be the ones who betray us.
Absolutely.
So get ready to dive into a world of chilling details, inflicting accounts, and a search for truth that spans over 40 years.
Let's start by setting the scene.
Okay.
It's August of 1981,
Okay.
a warm summer night in Pocatello.
Yeah.
Linda, a typical teenager described as a devout Mormon, is babysitting her younger brother Ben while their mother is out with friends.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting here is that the Smith family had what Ben describes as an open-door policy.
Okay.
Friends and neighbors were constantly coming and going,
Right.
a detail that will become significant as we delve deeper into the case.
So it's late,
Yeah,
around 11:30 p.m.,
okay.
and Ben is asleep on the couch in the living room.
Right.
Suddenly, he's jolted awake by the sound of a struggle.
Oh, wow.
He opens his eyes to see a man carrying Linda out of the house.
Oh, my gosh.
Imagine the terror that must have gripped him,
Oh, yeah.
seeing his sister being forcibly taken from their home.
What's striking about Ben's account, even after all these years, is the vividness of his memory.
Right.
He remembers specific details, like the man's grip on Linda, her desperate struggle to break free,
Wow.
and the image of them disappearing into the darkness of the backyard.
Ben, even at 9 years old, tries to intervene.
Wow.
He chases after the man,
Yeah.
even attempting to pull him away from Linda.
Goodness.
But the man is much stronger,
Right.
and he pushes Ben into some bushes,
Oh, no.
threatening him if he tries to follow.
Oh, gosh.
Can you imagine the helplessness and fear he must have felt,
Yeah.
witnessing this abduction and being unable to stop it?
It's a truly harrowing experience for a child to go through, and it gets even more disturbing.
Okay.
Ben recalls seeing the man shove Linda into a black van with flames painted on the side,
Wow.
a detail that has haunted him ever since.
With the van speeding away,
Right.
Ben runs to a neighbor's house to call for help.
Yeah.
Now remember, this is 1981.
Right.
The Smiths didn't have a phone in their home.
Oh, wow.
They relied on CB radios for communication,
Really?
a detail that highlights just how different things were back then.
Yeah.
It also adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine trying to coordinate a response to a kidnapping with CB radios as your primary means of communication.
It's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And it's likely that precious time was lost in those initial moments after the abduction.
Right.
And tragically, as we'll see, the police's response to Ben's desperate plea for help was far from ideal.
When the police arrive, instead of taking Ben's account seriously,
Yeah.
they suggest that Linda may have run away or gone to a party that was happening nearby.
Oh, no.
Imagine being 9 years old, having just witnessed your sister's abduction and being told by the very people you're supposed to trust
Right.
that she probably just ran off.
It's a devastating blow, not only to Ben's credibility, but also to the investigation itself.
Yeah.
That initial disbelief can have a ripple effect,
Right.
shaping the direction of the entire case.
It plants seeds of doubt.
Yeah.
And in those crucial early hours, the focus shifts away from a potential kidnapping
Right.
and towards a runaway scenario.
Wow.
And tragically for Linda, those lost hours could have meant the difference between life and death.
The police's skepticism is compounded by the fact that there were no signs of forced entry at the Smith home.
Right.
The back door was unlocked, which further fueled the runaway theory.
But Ben insisted that he had locked the door before going to sleep.
Hmm.
And remember that open door policy the family had.
Right.
Could it be that someone familiar with their routine,
Yeah.
someone they trusted,
Mm-hmm.
simply walked in and took Linda while Ben was asleep?
It's a chilling thought, and it's one of the many unsettling possibilities that emerge as we delve deeper into this case.
So with the police focused on the runaway theory,
Yeah,
precious days slip away.
right.
But a week later, a discovery is made that throws everything into question. A man walking his dog near a highway exit in Pocatello finds articles of young girls' clothing scattered along the side of the road.
Oh, wow.
He reports it to the police,
Yeah.
and it's later confirmed by Linda's mother that some of the items belong to her daughter.
Goodness.
You would think this would be a turning point, right?
Yeah, you would think.
Clear evidence that something terrible had happened.
You would think so.
But even with this discovery, the police are hesitant to classify the case as a kidnapping.
Really?
They suggest that Linda may have simply discarded the clothes herself,
Oh, wow.
further perpetuating the runaway narrative.
It's a frustrating and baffling response,
It is.
especially considering the trauma Ben had already endured
Yeah.
and the increasingly suspicious circumstances surrounding Linda's disappearance.
Exactly.
It's almost as if there's a reluctance to acknowledge the possibility that something truly sinister has occurred.
And sadly, this reluctance, this hesitancy to fully commit to the possibility of foul play
Yeah.
would become a recurring theme in the investigation, plaguing it with delays and missed opportunities.
And sadly, for an entire year, the case remains in this agonizing limbo.
Right.
The family is left grappling with the uncertainty, the not knowing, the agonizing wait for answers.
And it's not until the following summer, in July of 1982,
Yeah.
that a horrifying discovery is made that shatters their world
Wow.
and forces the police to finally confront the reality of what happened to Linda Smith.
3 young girls playing in a wooded area near a Pocatello subdivision stumble upon human remains,
Oh, my God.
including part of a skull.
Oh, wow.
It's a chilling discovery that sends shockwaves through the community
Right.
and leads to a more extensive search of the area.
And tragically, those remains are confirmed to be Linda's.
Oh, God.
The police are now forced to acknowledge that this is no longer a runaway case.
Right.
This is a kidnapping, and it's a murder.
But the condition of the remains makes determining a cause of death incredibly difficult.
Right.
They do find bullet casings near the site. But it's also an area known for target practice,
Right.
which adds another layer of ambiguity to the case.
So we have a young girl
Mm.
abducted from her home,
Yeah.
a witness whose account was initially dismissed,
Right.
the delayed discovery of her remains,
Mm-hmm.
and a lack of clear evidence to point investigators in the right direction.
Right.
It's a case riddled with complexities,
Yeah.
and it raises a host of questions that we'll continue to explore as we delve deeper into the investigation.
What are your initial thoughts on the case so far?
Hmm.
What details stand out to you as particularly significant or troubling?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that a year went by
No.
before Linda's remains were found.
Right.
And that even then,
Yeah.
the investigation was hampered by the lost time and the lack of clear evidence.
Yeah.
It's infuriating to think about.
It is.
The missed opportunities
Ah.
and the potential evidence that may have been lost because of the initial delays.
Absolutely. And to add another layer of complexity, shortly after Linda's abduction,
Okay.
her family moved away from Pocatello,
Right.
unable to bear the constant reminders of their loss.
Of course.
This means that any potential evidence at the house was
Yeah.
likely compromised
Yeah.
by the time Linda's remains were discovered.
It just adds to the frustration, doesn't it?
It really does.
But as we dug deeper into this case,
Yeah.
we uncovered something truly disturbing.
Oh,
Linda's case was not an isolated incident.
that's right. Linda was one of 5 young girls
Wow.
who went missing or were murdered in southeastern Idaho
Goodness.
between 1975 and 1983.
5 young girls, all within a relatively small geographic area,
Yeah.
all vanishing within a span of 8 years.
It's a chilling pattern.
It is.
That raises a very serious question.
Yeah.
Was there a serial killer operating in southeastern Idaho?
The fact that these girls vanished within such a small time frame and geographic location
Right.
raises significant questions.
Yeah.
Could there be a connection beyond mere coincidence? Statistically, stranger abductions are rare.
Very.
Was there a figure within this community who had access to these young girls?
Hmm.
You, as someone familiar with this case, might already have your own theories.
It's certainly a possibility that investigators had to consider.
Right.
And what's even more unsettling is that several of these girls, including Linda,
Right.
attended the same junior high school in Pocatello.
Okay, so let's break down these other cases.
Okay.
In 1975,
Yeah.
12-year-old Lynette Culver vanished.
Right.
After leaving Alameda Junior High School, 3 years later in 1978,
Okay.
12-year-old Tina Anderson and 15-year-old Patricia Campbell disappeared
Oh, wow.
after a Pioneer Day celebration at Alameda Park,
Right.
which, by the way, is just a mile from the school.
Goodness.
Then in 1981, we have Linda's abduction.
Right.
And finally, in 1983, 14-year-old Cindy Bringhurst was abducted while babysitting,
Oh, gosh.
much like Linda. And tragically, Cindy's body was found a month after she disappeared,
Wow.
south of Pocatello. So we have 5 cases.
Yeah.
All with some striking similarities.
Yeah.
Young girls, similar ages, vanishing from the same general area.
Right.
Yet, despite these similarities,
Yeah.
the police have never definitively linked these cases, at least not publicly.
Which is mind-boggling considering the potential pattern.
It is.
But there's another twist to this story.
Okay.
A connection to one of the most notorious serial killers in American history,
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Exactly.
Just before his execution in 1989,
Right.
Bundy confessed to the murder of Lynette Culver,
Okay.
the first girl who disappeared back in 1975.
And what's fascinating here is that Bundy provided details about Lynette's life
Yeah.
that seemingly only the killer would know.
Right.
It led investigators to believe that his confession was credible.
Right.
So we have this confirmed connection to Bundy.
Yeah.
But here's the problem.
Okay.
Bundy was already in prison by 1978, meaning he couldn't have been responsible for the abductions or murders of the other girls,
Right.
including Linda.
Which brings us back to that chilling question.
Yeah.
Was there more than one serial killer preying on young girls in southeastern Idaho during this time period?
It's a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
And it's what makes this whole story so unsettling.
It is.
We have these unsolved cases,
Yeah.
this potential pattern,
Right.
and the shadow of Ted Bundy looming over it all.
Right.
It's a web of mystery and unanswered questions
It is.
that has left families and investigators searching for answers for decades.
And what's particularly frustrating is that the Pocatello Police Department
Right.
has been largely uncooperative in sharing information about these cases,
Yeah.
even with Linda's family.
Ben has spoken about a revolving door of detectives
Yeah.
assigned to Linda's case over the years
Right.
with little to no progress.
Goodness.
He's recounted how in 2007,
Yeah.
the police told him they had at least 2 persons of interest, but nothing ever came of it.
It raises serious questions about the thoroughness of the investigations,
He does.
the commitment to finding answers
Yeah.
for these families who have already suffered so much.
And it leaves Ben, the key witness in Linda's abduction,
Right.
grappling with a lifetime of guilt and trauma.
Oh, gosh.
He carries the burden of not being able to save his sister
Right.
and the added weight of initially being disbelieved by the police.
His story highlights the profound and long-lasting impact these kinds of events have on families.
Yeah.
The ripple effect of unsolved crimes that can stretch across generations.
It's a heavy truth.
It is.
And it's something
Yeah.
we need to acknowledge and address as a society.
Yeah.
We need to do better
We do.
for these families, for these victims.
Absolutely.
But let's shift our focus back to Ben for a moment.
Okay.
He shared some incredibly poignant details about his memories of Linda
Right.
and the impact her loss has had on him.
What particularly resonated with me was his description of how the image of Linda on a playing card,
Yeah.
part of a cold case playing card deck distributed to inmates,
Yeah.
brought back a flood of emotion.
Yeah.
She's the 9 of hearts.
Right.
And Ben, being 9 years old when she was abducted,
Right.
found a strange sort of comfort in that connection.
It's a small detail,
It is.
but it speaks volumes about the way our minds try to make sense of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the ways we hold on to memories,
Yeah.
especially when those memories are all we have left of someone we love.
Right.
You might have experienced something similar in your own life,
Hmm.
where a small object or event becomes imbued with deeper meaning after a loss.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
for Ben, those memories are all he has left of his sister.
Right.
He shared that his recollection of her face and voice has faded over time,
Oh, wow.
which is a heartbreaking consequence of the years that have passed without resolution.
And as he's gotten older,
Yeah.
he's come to believe that Linda's abductor was likely someone familiar with their family, someone who knew their routine and the layout of their home.
That's a theory that aligns with statistical data.
It does.
Stranger abductions, particularly those involving entry into a home,
Yeah.
are relatively rare.
Right.
More often than not, the perpetrator is someone known to the victim or the family.
And it brings us back to that open door policy the Smiths had.
Right.
The frequent comings and goings of people in their home.
Yeah.
It creates a pool of potential suspects.
It does.
People who may have had the opportunity to observe Linda, to learn her routines, to gain her trust.
It's a chilling thought,
It is.
but it's a realistic possibility that investigators would need to consider.
Right.
And as we've seen, the Pocatello Police Department hasn't been forthcoming with information about their investigation.
Right.
So it's unclear if they've ever seriously explored that angle.
It's a frustrating lack of transparency
is.
that leaves Ben and his family in a constant state of limbo,
Yeah.
a never-ending search for answers that may never come.
And it highlights the need for greater accountability in these kinds of investigations.
Right.
A responsibility to keep families informed and to pursue all possible leads,
Right.
no matter how uncomfortable or difficult those leads may be to follow.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Eve.
A chilling abduction,
Yeah.
a delayed police response,
Right.
the discovery of remains, and the unsettling possibility of a serial killer operating in the area.
Yeah,
It's a story that raises more questions than it answers.
it does.
And it leaves us with a sense of unease and a deep empathy for Linda's family and all those affected by this tragedy.
And what's truly tragic is that Linda's case, along with the cases of the other missing girls,
Right.
remains unsolved.
Yeah.
Ben and his family are still waiting for closure, for justice.
Their story is a stark reminder of the devastating impact unsolved crimes have on families,
It is.
the enduring pain and uncertainty they leave behind.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in seemingly idyllic communities, darkness can lurk,
It can.
and that sometimes even the most basic trust can be shattered.
And it underscores the importance of vigilance, awareness, and the need for a system that truly protects the vulnerable
Right.
and ensures that those who commit these horrific acts are held accountable.
We can only hope that someday Ben and his family will finally get the answers they deserve,
I hope.
that justice will be served,
Yeah.
and that the memory of Linda and all the other missing girls will
Yeah.
be honored and remembered.
Yes.
But the story doesn't end there.
Right.
There are still more twists and turns to uncover
Okay.
as we delve deeper into the rumors, the theories,
Mm-hmm.
and the unanswered questions that continue to swirl around this case.
Okay.
We'll be right back after a short break
Okay.
to explore those lingering mysteries and examine the lasting impact of this tragedy on those who lived through it. It's cases like this that really get under your skin. You know, the ones where there are so many potential leads, so many unanswered questions, and yet decades later, there's still no resolution.
Right.
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah.
And for Ben, those missing pieces represent his sister's life, her story,
Yeah.
the truth about what happened to her.
And over the years, there have been a number of rumors and theories surrounding Linda's disappearance. At one point, the family suspected an 18-year-old who had developed a crush on Linda while she was working a paper route. He had written her letters, but she never reciprocated his feelings.
It's a strange detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
This young man fixated on Linda,
Yeah.
potentially harboring feelings that weren't returned. It definitely adds another layer of intrigue to the story.
Right.
But was he ever a serious suspect?
As far as we know, this individual was never seriously investigated,
Okay.
and there's no evidence to suggest he ever even visited the Smith home. Ben, however, firmly believes that whoever took Linda knew the layout of their house,
Right.
knew to park the van in the alleyway behind the home.
Wow.
It suggests a level of familiarity that's truly unsettling,
It does.
and it makes you wonder if someone in their circle, someone they trusted, might have been involved.
Right.
This is where the investigation takes a controversial turn.
Okay. That's right.
You have to wonder if the police, facing pressure to solve the case, started grasping at straws.
Right.
Or was there genuine evidence that pointed toward Noreen's involvement?
Right.
Unfortunately, the lack of transparency from the department
Yeah.
makes it difficult to assess their reasoning.
At some point, the police even suggested that Ben's mother, Noreen,
Right.
might have known something,
Okay.
or even been involved in Linda's disappearance.
That's a shocking accusation.
It is.
It's hard to imagine a mother being complicit in her own daughter's abduction.
And Ben has vehemently denied this theory.
saying he never believed his mother had anything to do with Linda's disappearance.
It's a heartbreaking situation all around.
It is.
Imagine the added pain and confusion
Right.
of having your own mother implicated in such a horrific crime.
Yeah.
And tragically, Noreen passed away in 2000 without ever knowing what happened to her daughter.
Oh, gosh.
She's buried next to Linda in Idaho Falls.
Wow.
A constant reminder of the unresolved grief and unanswered questions that haunt this family.
What struck me was Ben's description of his mother living with guilt for not being home the night Linda was taken.
Right.
Not because she had anything to do with it,
Okay.
but simply because she wasn't there to protect her daughter.
It's a powerful and heartbreaking insight into the emotional toll this case took on Noreen.
It is.
A mother's instinct to protect her children.
Yeah.
Coupled with the guilt of not being present when the unthinkable happened.
It speaks to the profound and complex emotions that families grapple with in the aftermath of such a traumatic event.
Absolutely.
And for Ben,
the years of unanswered questions, the revolving door of detectives, the lack of progress in the investigation have left him with a sense of deep frustration and disillusionment.
Of course.
He's described the case as cold as hell.
Wow.
And he's expressed his disappointment with the Pocatello Police Department's unwillingness to actively investigate further.
It's a sentiment echoed by many families of victims in cold cases.
It is.
The feeling that their loved one's case has been forgotten.
Right.
Relegated to a dusty file somewhere.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us? We have a young girl abducted from her home.
Right.
A witness whose testimony was initially doubted, a series of other missing girls in the same area, a potential connection to Ted Bundy, and a police department that seems unwilling or unable to provide answers.
Yeah.
It's a tangled web of mystery.
It is.
A story that raises more questions than it answers.
And for Ben, the only solace he has is the hope that someday, somehow, the truth will come to light.
I hope so.
He's clung to that hope for over 4 decades.
Wow.
And he continues to urge anyone with information to come forward, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem.
Yeah.
He's made it clear that he simply wants closure for himself, for his family, and most importantly, for Linda.
Absolutely.
He wants the world to remember her, to know her story, and to understand the devastating impact her loss has had on those who loved her.
If Ben's memory is accurate and Linda's abductor was familiar with the family's home, did someone in their circle know more than they revealed?
That's a good question.
What role did the police's initial disbelief play in the outcome of the investigation? These are questions that linger.
Yeah.
A reminder that even in the absence of answers,
Right.
the pursuit of justice should never cease.
Well said.
We urge you to visit the show notes for resources about Linda's case and the other missing girls.
A good idea.
If you have any information, no matter how small, please contact the authorities.
Please do.
Sometimes the smallest detail can be the missing piece of the puzzle.
And that's what we've tried to do today.
Yeah.
To shed light on this case.
Absolutely.
To give voice to Ben's experience.
All right.
And to honor the memory of Linda Smith. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Into a truly heartbreaking and perplexing case. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
I hope so.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a captivating story.
Great.
So be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode.
Yeah, we'd love for you to subscribe.
Until then, stay curious and keep asking questions.